Welcome to BizTech's Job Show. Now, on the Job Show, we bring you HR experts and industry leaders across the region to give you insights into the jobs as well as career advice across Asia. Now, who's hiring, who's not, what are the skill sets are in demand, how you can stand out from other candidates in this challenging job market. However, we have a slightly different career angle today. We've got the question of what's next after success for the 40-something-year-old high-flying executive who's on top of his game. The big question is often, what's next? What do I need to do? Now, this seemingly simple question is one of the most difficult to answer. And our special guest, Adrian Choo, the career strategist, will help provide some insights. Adrian is the CEO and founder of Career Agility International, a global career strategy and consulting firm which helps executives achieve career longevity and satisfaction. Now, with that mouthful, Adrian, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Happy to be here.
Now, Adrian, let's start with a scenario of a candidate. Let's call him John. John is a VP in a global bank in Singapore. He is 41. Married with 2 kids who are in primary school. He has a degree from a Malaysian university and an MBA from a British university. He's worked regionally in Malaysia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Now, he's happy with the progress in his career so far, but is starting to wonder at this point, what's next for him in his career? Now, what should a senior executive like him think about at this stage of his career?
It's quite a common question a lot of high-flying executives ask themselves at some point in their career. In fact, what we've noticed is that the more successful they are and the further they've come in their career, the more pressing the question of what next becomes. So we call these individuals career crossroaders because they are very literally at a career crossroad. So one of the big questions they need to ask themselves is, what am I driving for next? Do I want to accelerate my career to the next step, or do I want to pivot into something different? Do I still want to be in this industry, or do I want to try something different? Do I want to function? Do I still want to stay within this current function, or do I want to switch over perhaps from like HR or into finance? So there are a lot of questions, and it's a very multi-layered question to ask. And therefore, it takes some time to unbundle and unpack. And that's why it gets quite complicated when you try and answer those questions on your own.
So, Adrian, break it down for us.
So one of the first things you need to figure out is what makes me happy in my job? At my current stage, do I still want to drive my career to the next step? Do I want a promotion? Do I want a bigger portfolio? Or do I want to slow down? I'm at this stage where, hey, maybe my kids are all grown up, or maybe if I sit down and calculate all the assets that I have, I don't really need to work for the money because I'm in a pretty good spot. Do I want to join maybe a not-for-profit organization? Or do I want to join a bigger company, or do I even want to move to a competitor? So all these are various elements which individually are quite challenging to unpack by themselves. But when you look at the multi-layered nature of careers as they are, it becomes quite complex. And that's why we recommend that if you are at a career crossroad, before you try and make any bold moves, pause, take a break, and figure out slowly what exactly is your career strategy. And unfortunately, what we found out is that a lot of people do not have a career strategy. And that's where Career Agility International, our company, comes in to encourage all our clients to start thinking about the long-term strategy for themselves.
Now, so if you look at this example of John, now, so he's 41 years old. If you look at his career progression, now he's about right. He's not outstanding. He's done well enough, but if he was absolutely outstanding, he would either be in a C-suite in the bank now, or at least heading a division. So for someone like that, he then, as you said, is in an absolute career crossroad. 41 years old, if he makes the right moves, he can accelerate his career. What does he need to do, for example, in a scenario where he needs to accelerate his career?
He needs to figure out what is acceleration for him. Does he want to take on a bigger portfolio? Does he want to take on more countries? Does he want to manage a bigger team? And within which context he wishes to move towards? What's the next big thing? So it's not just about waiting for the company to offer you a bigger job or bigger post. A lot of times you need to engineer your own positioning, your own opportunities when you're heading out into your competitors, for instance. And if you decide you want to accelerate your career within your company, how do you play the game? How do you increase your promotional prospects within the organization? And there are ways
because
you can do it.
if it's within your own organization, one of the challenges then is you need to understand the nuances of the politics in order to engineer that move.
Correct. And you need to see, and one of the biggest mistakes a lot of executives do is that they think that if I just hit my KPIs, I'll get promoted. You do not get promoted based on performance, on your past performance. You get promoted based on your future potential. So it's not just enough to hit your targets. You have to show that you can operate 1 level or 2 levels above where you currently are. And even if you operate at that levels, how are you projecting your presence? How are you projecting your achievements to the decision makers who may not even be in KL, who may not even be in Singapore, who might be all the way in New York? So, and how do you get yourself into that network? Because at the end of the day, the decision makers they don't know about you, they never promote you. So it's a whole bundle of skills, career skills, which if you had a mentor in the organization or a sponsor to help you along, that's a great idea. It's a great way to get ahead. But a lot of times, if you don't, then it's something that you have to pick up on your own. These skills are important.
So Adrian, and this is an interesting thing and you've touched on 2 topics here. One, the fact that if you're within a global organization, as in this case, as we've put this scenario, this person, John, may essentially, if the bank is in Switzerland, he may have to engineer a move to HQ to then, even if it's a lateral position, make the necessary contacts so that he then can accelerate his career somewhere else. Now, that's one thing that perhaps can be done. The other thing is also you touched on with many senior people aware of, but junior people don't see the need. It's about the need to have a godfather or godmother to pull you along during your career, several levels up. Now, can I ask you then, Adrian, from your experience, how have really these high performance candidates really got someone to kind of take them under their wing?
It's once again, it's relationship building. You have to find your own mentors and get your own sponsors, and it requires a fair bit of networking. And yes, if you look at the successful leaders in your own organizations, and you will see that they've had a very good career progression all their lives within the organization. And you might notice an interesting trend where they were promoted because their bosses or their sponsors got promoted and they pull them along. So that's why you're absolutely right. It's important to have a sponsor or a mentor to pull you along. And that's where you get a lot of traction, especially when you're not operating at that level in the C-suite. But one caveat as well is that some people we know who have tied themselves too tightly to the sponsors, and if the sponsors fail or if they get retired or they get ousted, you're in trouble too. So it's about Game of Thrones, you see. So and it's whether or not you want to do it. So once again, with promotion comes problems, comes challenges. Are you ready for a promotion? Are you ready to put in the blood, sweat, and tears that come with the additional responsibility that comes with the promotion? Are you emotionally ready? Are you mentally ready? Are you ready skill-wise? So there are a lot of questions, career questions, which need to be asked and answered before you even decide, hey, I want to get promoted.
Yeah, and also I think that one of the key things is also, is my family willing to make the necessary sacrifices, or do I want them to make the necessary sacrifices for me to get ahead? Now, let's then take the other scenario. I'm the same person, but I've then decided, hey, we have enough money in the bank. Technically, I don't really need to work anymore if I engineer a different lifestyle. I want to see my kids more. My kids are growing up. They're in primary school. I will miss out on their growth. What do you think then? So this person is a senior banker, he's done well. What are the options potentially? Because one option is, of course, to stay in the same place and cruise, but
Yes.
then and just kind of do what you need to do, meet the base expectations for as long as you can until you lose your job. That's one option, which is a very common thing in less dynamic organizations.
Yes.
So you just cruise till you're 50, to you're 50 plus, and you kind of retire. You play the corporate game, and essentially you're in cruise control.
Yeah.
The other option is obviously then to then look and say, I'm 41 years old. Some of my skills are transferable, and maybe I want to look at other options that are less stressful, that I could have a better work-life balance. Maybe, Adrian, you can share some of those perspectives of candidates that you've counseled or worked with and so forth.
So I had a client who was a CFO, and in his mid-40s, he realized that, and I quote, because I met him in Langkawi on a vacation once, okay, and he told me that he quit his job and took a sabbatical, and I asked him why, because he was a CFO, and he said, I remember very memorable words. I realized that I missed my kids' growth. Okay, I just kept seeing my daughter growing longer. I mean growing taller. I said, no, growing longer, because I would come back home at about 11 at night and see her in bed. And then a few months later, I'll fly back to Singapore again. I see her in bed. And she's grown longer, not taller. So he says, I miss out on my daughter's growing years. So as a result, he took a break, and he decided to channel his energies towards a charitable organization, and he took a role there, not as a CFO but as a finance manager. As a quarter of the package where he was taking, but he could knock off every day at 5 o'clock and just pick the kids up and spend time with the kids. So to him, that was his career strategy. But even if you were to embark on what we call, this strategy is what we call a downshift strategy. There's a lot of other implications as well, which you need to figure out. For instance, you got to figure out your timeline. You got to figure out your financial strategy as well, and a lot of things as well. So we have seen a trend of people actually downshifting in their mid-late 40s. But once again, the career strategy comes in, and that's why we are always talking about career strategy. Because if you are at 41 right now and you say that it's still too early for me to downshift, maybe then the next 5 years you want to accelerate, get enough money so that when you're in your late 40s, you can downshift. So once again, you see, there must be a strategy at play. If you're just going out randomly, trying things out, you're exposing yourself to a lot of unnecessary risk. So that's why you really need to sit down and start thinking about the future.
Okay, so Adrian, there's another track as well, and someone says, I've done well, but I hate my job. I absolutely hate what I'm doing. What can I do that's not so stressful and perhaps something new? Now, the problem obviously is, and you please unpack this situation, moving from one skill set for another, if it's not within the same organization and you've worked in the same place and they're willing to transition you, will come at a significant price of a reduced pay packet. So how can someone who wants to transition into a job out of a job that they hate, into something else, what sort of advice would you give them?
The question is, what about the job do you hate? And what about the job that you want but you're not getting? And will the next job get you that? So it's okay it's one thing to say, I hate my job, but can you name me the 3 things that you hate? And
okay, that's a good one. A lot of times, number one is I hate my boss. I hate the job that I'm doing.
Yeah, you might say I hate my boss, but you quit, and then 3 months later the boss gets fired, and then you're like, oh shucks, I should have stuck around. You see, or
exactly.
You say, so what we're trying to say is you really need to be very situationally aware you really need to sit down and plan your strategy. But unfortunately, a lot of us are so busy with our quarterly targets, with our KPIs and everything. We don't sit down and start thinking about your career strategy. And that's why that's where a lot of people fail in their careers. And that's why it's very critical for you, even before you decide what to do next, you need to have a career strategy, a plan.
Now, when do you and what sort of time and effort and stuff does it take in terms of crafting a strategy, and when's an optimum time to do that?
Now, okay, wherever you are, wherever station you are, whatever age you are, the best time to do your career strategy, honestly, is about 3 years ago. Okay. Now is the time for you to start thinking about it if you haven't, but the best time to do it is probably about 3 to 5 years ago. A lot of clients who come through our career clarity program and our coaching programs, their biggest complaint they've always said is like, darn it, I wish I had sat through this 10 years ago. My life would have been a lot easier today. So the best time to plan it is about 5 years ago. But if you're right now where you are and you're having these thoughts about what's next, what should I be planning for? You want to plan for your career, but what should I be planning for? Do I plan for more money, or do I plan for a more prestigious job? Or these are things you need to find out what's important to you. And my biggest fear for a lot of people in Asia right now, okay, around the world, is you have to plan for employability. What I mean is that you need to plan for how do I remain in demand in the market? How do I stay employable for the next 15 years? Because a lot of the skills I can tell you that are in the market today are being automated, are being outsourced, are being rendered obsolete by technology. And if you are, for instance, a risk management analyst or consultant, AI can manage the risk so much better than you. So what are you doing? You're just putting data, you're feeding data into a risk machine, and very soon the risk machine is going to take over your job. So are you going to be employable after that? And if you take a hard look and ask yourself, will my job still be around in 5 years?
And you know what, Adrian, I'm going to give you a very interesting example of how that has already happened in one aspect of banking: treasury operations. Treasury operations globally now, pretty much, they're talking to machines. Machines are talking to each other. Yeah. In Asia, you still have treasury people in a lot of the less developed. So in fact, I've talked to a candidate before, and he was sharing this. In fact, yes, you're right. In fact, all we're doing is we're no longer talking on the phone anymore. We're just talking to another computer back on the thing, and I know my job is going to be redundant. And so that's a very important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, and your job
will be redundant.
Exactly. And some jobs are gone already. Can you remember this very old job called remisier?
Yes.
Yeah, stockbroker.
They still happen in Malaysia.
I don't know. Are there still stockbrokers around? I don't know.
Yes, they do.
It's like how
pick up the phone and call them.
Yeah, in the old days, right? I don't know whether they're still around, you see. So that's why would I want to do that? Unless, and if you're a stockbroker or if you're in that space, then you have to start thinking, what value add can I do? Like in Singapore now, insurance agents are dying out because right now the insurance companies are going direct, So if you're an insurance agent, a sales agent, you have to start thinking, how do I plan for the longevity? Do I move up market? Do I just go into estate planning, the space which bots can't do? Or do I come into the space where I become a specialist in a particular area? So these are things in your career strategy which you need to sit down and implement, which on your own, it's good if you try on your own, but a lot of times it helps to have a coach sitting down there talking to you and challenging your ideas. It's like you want to lose weight, fine, you can go on a diet, but diets don't work. You need to engage your fitness coach to really show you how to lift the weights without damaging your muscles and your bones. So that's where coaches like us come in to start talking about your career strategy rather than, hey, let's help you find a job, because it's not enough to land a job. You have to have your strategy right and your strategy straight.
Okay, now one thing I need to ask you is, again, many people go to work, come home, go to work, come home. They never had a career strategy. Now, how would you help someone who's probably good performer, as you said, hitting their numbers, but not really planned their career and kind of just went along, is probably now late 30s and says, hang on here, I need help because actually I see my less capable friends being promoted, which is a common thing that happens
Oh, yes.
because they are good with the bosses and everything.
Yes.
And they're lost as to what to do. They are frustrated, they are angry, moving to another job perhaps didn't quite work out for them. Again, the acceleration. What do you think? How would you counsel them in order to get their career back on track?
They need to figure out what exactly they want. I can tell you that a lot of people want a better job, but they are unable to articulate what exactly is a better job. Okay, they want a better job in terms of a bigger title, a bigger, more money, and a fancier company, a bigger company. But is that really what you want? Because if there are things that you hate doing anyway, once again, like what I was saying in my earlier question, what you don't want. If I pay you more money to do what you don't want and what you don't like, it's fun for the first 3 to 6 months, but after that you're gonna get burnt out. So you need to take stock of your life, of your relationships, of your destiny. I would say. I'm being very philosophical here, but career is not just about jobs, and that's where for the past 8 years, we've been in the market. We've been telling people that careers is not just about jobs. It's about your entire holistic being. Your career affects your family. Your career affects your health, your wealth, your relationships, everything around you. And so what if you have a stellar job? So what if you got a stellar career, but if your health suffers? What we believe is that if you're not managing your career and life strategy correctly, a failure in one could mean a failure in all. So what's the point if you are the CEO, but suddenly one morning you wake up and you're with a stroke or get a heart attack, and all is gone, So it's a holistic thing. You need to stop, pause, take a step back, think about what's important for you, and talk to a professional if you need to. And I think that's critical, because it's one thing to talk to friends. Friends will give you very well-meaning advice, but they're not professionals. You can talk to your mentors. That will be a good start. And your mentor will probably give you his perspective from his very unilateral view of the world. Because if he is a senior banker and all he's done in his life is banking, if you want to ask him, I want to do a career switch, he probably knows very little about anything else, adjacencies.
Yes.
So that's why clients come to folks like us for just for a discussion or for advice. I'm just happy to have a chat with them.
Any final thoughts, Adrian, before we end this excellent conversation?
If you are at a career crossroad, if you're 40 or 41, ask yourself a question: what does the 50-year-old me want to look like? Okay, do I want to be so successful and have lots of money, or do I want to be able to say that I spent a lot of quality time with my kids growing up, or do I want to say that I've done very meaningful work? Ask yourself what exactly you want when you're 50, 10 years from now. And are you going to get that in your current job? Are you going to get that in your next job? Are you on track to getting it wherever you are? Okay, and think deep, think hard about it, and take steps to move towards that dream. It's not just about next quarter's KPIs or next quarter's targets. Okay, your career is far longer than that, far broader, and impacts not just yourself but your family as well. So have a think about that over the weekend that's coming up. And if any questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer calls.
Adrian, thank you very much for taking the time to be on your show, and thank you for your sagely advice.
My pleasure.
Go ahead.
Looking forward to future episodes.
Yes, so we've been speaking to Adrian Choo, the CEO and founder of Career Agility International in Singapore, on BizTech's Job Show. I'm Brian Fernandez. Check out www.biztech.asia for business and technology conversations.